Welcome to Conversations Live. For more than a decade, we've brought you the best in books, entertainment, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Now, here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
And welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. Whether you're tuning in on the radio dial, we welcome you all back to our program. Those joining us through our online affiliates, we're glad to have all of you with us, including our Heart Radio family. We're glad to have all of you with us as well. We're excited to welcome back to our program today award-winning author Linda Bello Ruiz. We're going to talk to Linda not only about the success of her book, Love Thy Neighbor, but what it's been like for her to share her own personal journeys with the world, but also some universal messages that I think we all can be able to glean from this book, including from the title itself, Love Thy Neighbor. If you're still hearing about the book, we're going to tell you at the end of our segment how you can get it for yourself. But Linda, hello to you and welcome back to the program.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, the pleasure's definitely all mine, Linda. And I should say that, Linda, you are out traveling right now. You're not in the United States at this moment, and we appreciate you taking out some time out of your day and your travels to be able to spend with us. But it brings up a really good point about you and your work. I mean, what has it been like for you, Linda, to not only to be able to travel the world, but to share the messages of your book with the world as well?
It's a pleasure for me. Love Thy Neighbor actually takes place down here where I currently am in Mexico. So it's become a message to the people in the village where I live about life here and culture and obviously loving a neighbor that on the surface is unlovable. So this book speaks to so many people in different ways to where they stop me on the street daily and thank me for writing the book, thank me for telling the story of life, this young man's life and the choices that he made that changed so many people's worlds. And my heart just whelms just with love every time somebody thanks me because I needed to tell the story, and it's become like the book people are talking about.
For sure. Did you know when you were writing the book, Linda, and I should say, I mean, for those that are just hearing about it, I mean, it chronicles, this journey in 2010, but I mean, at the time the book was written, and published, last year, there have been so many things that have been happening in the world. Did you know at the time that the book would be able to impact people around the world the way that it is?
No. When I wrote the book, I wanted to tell the story of the main character, Toro, because like so many people in the world, he had a goal in life as a young boy. In his instance, it was to be a soccer player, and later on to be a professional soccer player, and later on he even wanted to be a policeman. But because of family dynamics and him being pulled out of school at a young age to help support a large family, he was robbed of opportunities that so many of us have. And that's not a strange, uncommon theme in the part of Mexico where I stay part of the year. So his decisions then, his parents' decisions, his father's decision, ended up making him have to make decisions that have impacted the wife, impacted his children. We just had a Mass 2 nights ago at the Catholic Church down here celebrating, remembering his life. So it's still very raw to me. It's still very real what happened to him and why it happened to him.
Yeah, I think that is it. I think, the other side of this, too, is that it shows a different side of him throughout the book, of Toro, as we're able to read the book, Linda. There are some things that people might look at and say are callous, like, the throwing of, parents out of their home for collateral. Right. But then also the protection that we see toward the end of the book. Do you think that also is a big part of this message, that people can change, and even the people that we think are the most heartless or the most hardened, that there are things about them that can still be redeemable?
Yes, I think that is actually the theme, that he was a certain way, He wasn't a start. He became a certain way in his life. Excuse me. But then, and he had to fit the part. He had to be callous. He had to be strong. He had to have, if he wasn't who he was, as I explained during the book, then he wouldn't have had the power that he was wielding over this town. But underneath that, he was still that young boy. He was still that young boy that was so disappointed and upset when his father took him out of school. He was still that young boy, that young man that was so upset when he couldn't become a policeman. He had that inside, but the crust. And he wasn't that old, remember. He was still in his 20s, but he had to have this crusty exterior that everybody saw. And I, for some reason, and it had to have been the Lord, because on the exterior he was scary. But there was just this feeling inside of me of something more inside of him that I wanted to touch.
Right. For sure. And we're able to see that with Rebecca, of course, kind of alluding to, how you are being introduced into this book. Linda had to deal with that. But there are also, of course, the biases. And it's interesting to kind of watch that, because Rebecca's biases and Rebecca's feelings mirror what so many people would feel in a similar situation looking at a certain individual. But then there are conversations that happen. And, I love a good conversation, Linda. And the conversations that you're able to have in the book, what is it like for you to reflect on, those times when you are able to kind of use Scripture to kind of to share points with Toro in the book?
I tread very lightly in sharing Scripture with him. I wanted to show versus preach. I wanted to be a sample, not a sermon. And he was seeing that within me, as he will ask in one of our conversations, why do you do what you do? Why do you help people? Why are you always here, in this community helping others? And that's what he saw. I felt that if I tried to preach at him, tried to get him to be something that he wasn't in the beginning, that I would lose him. So I tread very lightly, showing him through loving my neighbor, that reminding him that there was something out in the universe that was good, something that was pure, something that still cared about him. And that's how I decided to approach it, was the soft way, and which is why towards the end of the book, I felt, oh my God, I wasn't quick enough. I wasn't quick enough. Yeah. I didn't reach him fast enough, and I think that was important to explain, because it's so real. People want to reach out and save the world. There's so many of us that want to save the world, and we can't. It's not even our job. Our job is to be an instrument of love and caring and goodness and portraying who Christ is. But it's not our job to save, and that became a theme in this book. Did I not do my job? What was my job? That's a hard thing to wrestle with, even now.
For sure. And it's something I think so many people can relate to. Linda, I want to say, for those who are just tuning in on the radio side or online, you're listening to Conversations Live. We're excited to welcome Linda Bello Ruiz back to our program today. We're talking to Linda not only about her book, Love Thy Neighbor, A Precarious Endeavor, but also what it's been like for her to share this with the world. And even in the conversation, that you're having in the book with Tony, and he asked you about Toro scaring you. And you said that, Jason, who we're able to see in the book being the boyfriend, calls it a precarious friendship. You call it a precarious endeavor. Talk to us about that and what that distinction meant for you, a precarious endeavor. I explained it that way because I didn't know if there really was a friendship. Can you be a real friend, quote unquote, to the head of a mafia group? Can you really be their friend? So
That's why I called it not a precarious friendship, but a precarious endeavor, because my endeavor was what I wanted was to touch him in a way that he emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, that nobody could and nobody was. He had shut down his faith. He had shut down any connection he had to goodness to save his image. But I had known through his wife in conversations with Nellie that there had been a time when he'd gone to catechism. He was part of the youth church, so I knew that was inside of him. And I wanted to, nobody else around him was, so I wanted to mirror that. And so my endeavor, I knew, was precarious because he was dangerous. But it was like a blind faith I had, Cyrus, a blind faith that I would be okay, that he would not hurt me. Yes, there was rumors that he had done terrible things, but it was like, he won't hurt me. I think he likes me, I say at one point in the book. I think he likes me. I wasn't quite sure, but I saw him as my protector, which was a weird thing to feel. So the relationship between us had so many levels, to where people will stop me on the street and say, I just read your book, or I'm in the middle of reading your book, and I can see you pushing him in his hammock or poking him in the arm. Knowing your personality and who you are as a person, and in the book, I'm Rebecca, I can see you doing that. And they just laugh. I can see you pushing and playing with him and joking with him. But as you know, having read the book, that wasn't easy, and I was so scared in the beginning.
Right. Well, I think, that is the thing. We hear this saying all the time, Linda, do it afraid. And it's, we know that some things we have to be willing to have the faith to just move forward anyway. I will say this, too, and you mentioned, of course, when people telling you about them reading the book, one of the things that we talked about when we were setting up this conversation with us, knowing that you were going to be in Mexico, is the response from the States versus the response in Mexico where you are. Have you found that the message does seem to be resonating more strongly there?
Oh, absolutely. This book has become like the book. It's like folklore. It's like everybody has to read it. And even though I changed names and places to protect the town, people know it's here. And they had heard the story 5 years ago. We just celebrated, if you can say that word, we just went through 5 years. A lot of us down here come every year, or they're new when they've heard the story about this thing that happened on February 12th, 2012 it would have been, or 2013, because it's just been 5 years. But so they want to get their hands on it, and then they're sharing it with everybody. I don't get that same reaction in the States. I can't keep enough books. You watch me on Facebook. Okay, somebody brought a suitcase with 10 more books. They're gone. Next week, somebody else is arriving with 12 books. They're spoken for. Then my daughter is bringing down, in her suitcase, another 18, as much as we can get in people's suitcases to get them here. And they're gone. And they're gone. I don't get that up in the States, and I'm not quite sure why, because in reality, the story, although it took place here and people feel that, the story is universal. It could happen anywhere. It's happening in the United States. It's happening in other countries. Young boys are making decisions to get into the drug world, to have easy money, and then they get so far in they can't get out. And because of that choice, everybody around them is affected by it. So it's a universal story, but here it's a reality, and that's why it's so popular.
Well, I'm going to make it my personal mission, Linda, this year to help shine the spotlight on the story. I mentioned to you I wanted to do this conversation for two reasons. One, I always enjoy speaking with you, so it's great to be able to have you back on the air with us, especially now that we're on iHeartRadio. But also, two, we're going to be sharing this with our readers that are spread out across the country and even the world through Conversations, the magazine. And I'm excited about them having a chance to read about you, read about the book, and then, of course, to see how they can get it for themselves. What is your hope, though, Linda, when people do pick it up, no matter where they are? What is your hope that the book does for them, and not only showing what is possible in anyone's life, but also the responsibility we have to be able to be, as you mentioned, even in this conversation, to be a walking testimony?
I'm hoping that this book speaks to parents who are seeing their children kind of walking down a road where they shouldn't be, making decisions that are going to change their lives, but they don't see it in the moment, to where they could say, read this book. Read a real life story of a young man who made decisions that you're starting to make, and what happened, and all of the terrible things that happened because of one kid's decisions. I want young people to read it and go, oh my God, that's my brother, or that could be me, or that's my uncle, to where they see how important our every choice is. Choice goes to circumstance goes to consequences. And it might not be getting into the drug world that gets you into a cartel or a mafia group. It may not be that huge, Cyrus. It could just be, I think I'm going to quit school. Or it could be, I want this other group of friends, even though I see that they're not the best people to have. It's tiny decisions that bring consequences, and that's my message. And then on the other side, for those of us, and through my first book, From Tears to Triumph, I do not have a stellar past. I've had to make, my own choices in life, which led to some circumstances which I got out of, and I'm here to speak about. But I want those of us that have been there and done that to be the shining example, to be able to say, I did it, I made bad choices, I came through it, I'm here for you, I understand you. Here's my hand. Let me show you a different way.
Right. What a great thing, and what a great message for all of us. Again, everyone, Linda Bello Ruiz has been our guest. Great conversation with you as always, Linda. The book is Love Thy Neighbor, A Precarious Endeavor. It's available to our friends at Amazon.com, and if you can catch Linda online, she's all over the place. Reach out to her for an autographed copy of the book. She'll be glad to help to accommodate and facilitate that. Linda, how can our audience stay connected with you?
Facebook, either Linda Bello Ruiz author. Google me. I'm very Googleable, like you are. Just put my name in there, and you'll see me all over. In the States, I go to meetings, to social service groups, to church groups. I love to speak about choices and consequences. My Facebook page here in Mexico is all about doing good for the community. Just put my name into a Google search and say hi.
All right, and I'll be tagging her as well. Linda, safe travels to you, our continued prayers with you, and thank you so much for another great conversation. Really do appreciate the time.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You're more than welcome. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying, as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Make sure you take out time to enjoy some good music as well as a great book. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Live today. You all make it a great one.